It was just another fight, but this time something snapped. Alex stood in the kitchen, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Across from him, Emma crossed her arms, glaring at him like he was a stranger. "I'm going to this party," she said flatly, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "And I'll spend the night with whoever I want." The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. He blinked, trying to process what she just said. Did she really mean it? "You don't mean that," Alex shot back, though his voice shook. "Yes, I do," Emma replied, grabbing her purse off the counter. She didn't even look at him as she headed for the door. "You've ignored me for months, Alex. Maybe someone else will actually care." With that, she walked out, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the house, leaving Alex standing there alone, staring at the empty space where she'd been. For a moment, all he could hear was the pounding in his chest. How had it come to this? Alex sank onto the couch, his mind racing back to how things used to be. He remembered the day he first met Emma. She was laughing with friends at a cafe, her smile lighting up the room. He'd mustered the courage to talk to her, and from that moment, they were inseparable. They dreamed of traveling the world together, building a life full of love and adventure. But somewhere along the way, those dreams faded. Work got in the way. Bills piled up. Conversations turned into arguments. Alex started staying late at the office, trying to provide for them, but Emma felt neglected. She craved attention, affection, things Alex didn't have the energy to give anymore. Lately, little things had been bothering him. Late-night texts she always deleted. The way she avoided answering when he asked about her day. And then there was that receipt he found last week, for an expensive dinner neither of them had mentioned. She said it was with a coworker. Alex muttered to himself, shaking his head. But now, sitting alone in the quiet house, those moments felt like warning signs he'd ignored for too long. As Alex sat there, replaying everything in his mind, one thing became clear. This wasn't just about tonight. Something had broken between them long before Emma walked out that door. He thought about the fights they'd had recently, the cold silences, the accusations. Each one chipped away at what they once had until there was barely anything left. And now, here he was, abandoned in his own home, wondering if she really meant what she said. Would she actually spend the night with someone else? The thought made his stomach churn. Whatever happened next, Alex knew one thing for sure. Things would never be the same again. The music was loud, the lights dim, and the room buzzed with energy as Emma stepped into the crowded house. She told herself she deserved this. A night away from Alex and all their problems. For a moment, she felt free, like she could breathe again. But deep down, guilt gnawed at her. Was she really going to go through with this? "Hey, you look like you could use a drink," a smooth voice said beside her. She turned to see Ethan, a guy from work she'd met once or twice. He was handsome, confident, and seemed genuinely interested in her. As he handed her a glass of wine, she felt a spark she hadn't felt in years. "You came alone?" Ethan asked, leaning closer so she could hear him over the music. "Yeah," Emma replied, forcing a smile. "Needed a break, I guess." As the night went on, they talked and laughed, the alcohol loosening her inhibitions. For the first time in months, Emma felt alive. But deep down, a small voice whispered that she was crossing a line she couldn't come back from. Back at home, Alex paced the living room, replaying Emma's words in his head. "I'll spend the night with whoever I want." The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. How could she do this to him? To them? He tried distracting himself by flipping through TV channels, but nothing held his attention. Every creak of the house made him glance toward the door, half expecting her to walk in and say it was all a mistake. But she didn't come. Hours passed, and Alex's mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Finally, just before dawn, he heard the sound of keys jingling outside. The door opened, and Emma stumbled in, clearly drunk. She froze when she saw him sitting there, wide awake. "What are you doing up?" she slurred, avoiding his eyes. Alex didn't answer. Instead, he noticed her phone lying on the coffee table. Its screen lit up with a message notification. His stomach sank as he picked it up and read the text. Ethan, last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Emma's face went pale as she realized what he'd seen. Alex stared at the text message, his hands trembling with rage. The words blurred in front of him, but their meaning was crystal clear. Emma had betrayed him. Not just tonight, but for who knows how long. For a moment he wanted to scream, to throw something, to confront her right then and there. But as he looked at her standing in the doorway, disheveled and drunk, he realized she wasn't worth it. Not like this. Instead, he set the phone down and said nothing. Emma hesitated, waiting for him to explode. But when he didn't, she muttered something about being tired and stumbled toward the bedroom. Alex let her go. He didn't care anymore, or at least that's what he told himself. But inside, something snapped. The next morning, Alex woke up early, his mind racing with plans. He couldn't just sit back and let her get away with this. No, she needed to feel the same pain she'd caused him. And Ethan? He deserved worse. First, Alex dug into Emma's phone while she was in the shower. He found more messages from Ethan, flirty texts, plans for future meetups, even photos they'd exchanged. Each one fueled his anger, but also gave him ideas. He started small, reaching out to mutual friends under the guise of catching up. "Have you noticed anything off about Emma lately?" he asked casually during coffee with Sarah, one of her closest friends. Sarah frowned. "Not really." "Why?" "Oh, no reason," Alex lied smoothly. "Just thought she seemed distant." By lunchtime, he'd planted seeds of doubt in a few key people's minds. Next, he turned his attention to Ethan. A quick search online revealed plenty about the guy, his social media profiles, workplace, even his hobbies. Alex memorized every detail, looking for weaknesses. As the days passed, Alex became obsessed. He stopped sleeping properly, spending hours plotting his revenge. Part of him wondered if this was healthy, if maybe he should just walk away and start over. But another part, the angrier part, refused to let go. One night, as he sat alone in the dark, staring at his laptop, Alex whispered to himself, "You want to play games? Fine, let's play." Over the next few weeks, Alex worked methodically, piecing together his revenge like a puzzle. He didn't rush, it had to be perfect. First, he arranged a fake business trip, telling Emma he'd be out of town for 3 days. She barely reacted, which only confirmed what he already knew. She didn't care about him anymore. With her guard down, Alex set his plan in motion. Using a fake social media account, he began messaging Ethan, pretending to be an old friend. "Hey man, long time no see," the message read. "We should catch up sometime." Ethan, eager to make connections, agreed. They exchanged numbers, and soon Alex was feeding him subtle hints about Emma. How she talked about him at home, how distant she seemed. Nothing too obvious, just enough to plant seeds of paranoia. Meanwhile, Alex reached out to Sarah again, this time with more pointed questions. "Did Emma mention anyone new at work lately?" he asked casually. Sarah hesitated. "Well, now that you mention it, she did seem chatty with some guy named Ethan." Bingo. By the end of the week, rumors were swirling among their circle of friends. Whispers followed Emma everywhere she went, and though she tried to brush them off, Alex could see the cracks forming in her confidence. But the real blow came during a dinner party hosted by one of their mutual friends. Alex made sure both Emma and Ethan were invited and seated near each other. As everyone mingled, Alex pulled out his phone and sent a text to Ethan from Emma's account. "Meet me in the study. We need to talk." Ethan excused himself, looking confused but intrigued. A few minutes later, Alex followed, pretending to grab another drink. When he entered the study, he found Ethan standing there alone, looking around awkwardly. "Looking for someone?" Alex asked, closing the door behind him. Ethan froze, his face pale. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, I think you know," Alex said, his voice cold. "You really thought you could mess with my wife and get away with it?" Before Ethan could respond, Alex revealed screenshots of their private messages, the ones Ethan thought were harmless. Then he played a recording of Emma admitting, in a drunken rant, that she regretted cheating but couldn't stop herself. The look on Ethan's face was priceless. Alex didn't stop there. He sent the evidence to everyone at the party, exposing Emma and Ethan in front of all their friends. Gasps filled the room as people checked their phones, reading the shocking truth. Emma, realizing what had happened, broke down in tears. "How could you do this to me?" she cried, turning to Alex. "How could you?" He shot back, his voice shaking with anger. "You destroyed us, Emma. Now everyone knows exactly who you are." The fallout was immediate and brutal. Emma became a pariah among their friends, shunned at social gatherings and whispered about behind closed doors. She tried apologizing, begging for forgiveness, but no one wanted to hear it. Not even Sarah, her closest confidant. For Alex, the victory felt hollow. At first, he relished the look of shame on Emma's face, the way she crumbled under the weight of her own actions. But as days turned into weeks, the satisfaction faded, replaced by an emptiness he couldn't shake. One night, sitting alone in the quiet house they once shared, Alex found himself staring at old photos of them together. He remembered the laughter, the dreams they'd built side by side. Was this really all that was left? Emma, meanwhile, moved out shortly after the dinner party. She rented a small apartment on the other side of town, trying to start over. But everywhere she went, she saw judgment in people's eyes, or worse, pity. She started therapy, hoping to understand why she'd done what she did. "I thought I deserved better," she admitted during one session, tears streaming down her face. "But now I realize I threw away the only person who truly loved me." Alex heard through mutual acquaintances that she was struggling, but he didn't reach out. Part of him still hated her, but another part wondered if he'd gone too far. Had his revenge cost him the chance to heal properly? Months later, Alex ran into Sarah at a cafe. They hadn't spoken much since the scandal, but she greeted him warmly. "How are you holding up?" she asked, sipping her coffee. "I'm okay," Alex replied, though the words felt heavy. "It's been tough." Sarah nodded knowingly. "You know, revenge doesn't fix things. It just leaves scars." Her words lingered long after their conversation ended. That night, Alex sat on the porch watching the stars. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel something other than anger, regret. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe revenge wasn't the answer. But it was too late to take it back now. As for Emma, she eventually found a job in a new city, determined to rebuild her life. She dated occasionally, but trust never came easily. Every relationship reminded her of what she'd lost, the love she'd taken for granted. In the end, neither Alex nor Emma ever fully recovered from the choices they made. Their story served as a reminder that betrayal cuts both ways, and sometimes the wounds never fully heal.